So did you know that Dfinity recently reposted a post indicating how the internet computer actually processes more transactions than Visa? Which allegedly that's what that post said. But what that even means, if we take a look at it from a figure standpoint of view, from like the actual numbers, it does indicate that when it comes to the internet computer, over 25,620 transactions per second. And that's actually as of May 2024. So it's like, basically 2 years ago. But still, at the end of the day, that's really impressive because that chart right there, or that diagram or whatever, even though nothing I say is financial advice, and even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, it does indicate how Visa on average does process 1,700 transactions per second. So clearly, over 10 times is processed per second on average, allegedly, when it comes to ICP, again, in comparison to Visa as of May 2024, at least from what I can see. Now, I get it. People like to say, wow, that's like a long time ago, but it doesn't change the fact that, that statistic, I think, arguably does matter. And the fact that they even reposted it as of right now, I mean, I'm probably assuming that they still see some relevance and some kind of similarities to those figures, or not, why would they repost that, right? Dfinity is really massive. I highly doubt they're going to repost something that isn't actually kind of somewhat, I guess, resembling their project in a way. But yeah, besides that point, people like to tell me ICP isn't really doing anything much. Okay, yeah, sure. I get how like the price, it was like well above $3 and now it's like well below $3. I'm totally aware of that. But we have to consider these statistics right here often entice, right? They often make a lot of these developers kind of happy because sure, many developers out there may not really be entering into this space as of right now because the conditions are not the best. But there's a lot that are paying attention. That's the thing. A lot of developers out there, they're sitting on the sidelines, true, but they're taking a look at, okay, where can we build if, let's say, the market were to recover? Some of them are thinking about that. And with statistics like that, when it comes to ICP, I think some of these developers may have ICP on their shopping list. That's the way to take a look at it. In terms of like, developing on, right? I'm not saying they're going to start dollar cost averaging into ICP. I'm not saying that. But it's like, if I go inside a grocery store and then I want to get eggs, I want to get milk, kind of like that. So when I take a look at this right here, it is pretty impressive to me because a lot of people, if I told them, what do you think processes more transactions per second on average, Visa or ICP? I'm pretty sure over 95% probably would automatically just say, oh, of course, Visa. I think a lot of people would say that. But from those statistics, apparently ICP does more. Now, furthermore, the internet computer being fast like that, again, processing that many transactions per second, allegedly over 25,000 on average as of May 2024, and I'm pretty sure it's still pretty fast as of right now. But besides that, that really does matter. A lot of these enterprises out there, even like processing, let's say, just 10 more transactions per second, that difference right there sometimes is a deal breaker. Sometimes that's all they care about. Sometimes even just like one or two. The reason why is because unlike the retail market, who maybe uses something like once a month or whatever, or a couple times a month, some of these enterprises, they're running thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not maybe even millions of actions per day. In which case, if we consider just like a 1 second difference, that matters a lot because if we multiply that over tens of thousands, over hundreds of thousands, or over millions, over weeks, over months, over multiple years, that starts adding up a lot. In the world of, these very competitive businesses, they're operating sometimes under very thin margins. So any sort of advantage that they could have, they're willing to care about that. Unlike the retail market, like for instance, if I'm using ICP and my other friend is using like another project or whatever, and let's say his one is a little bit slower, I highly doubt he's going to care. Neither will I really. But for these enterprises, they do care. And if a lot of enterprises start adopting a certain project, it's kind of like a high tide raises all ships type of vibe where institutional adoption, sometimes it's key. We take a look at Bitcoin, Ethereum. Take a look at what happened after institutions started caring about that. The growth that they had was just a lot more dynamic than before. We haven't really seen that yet, though, when it comes to ICP. But I'm not necessarily concerned. I'm willing to wait anyways, so Sometimes that type of stuff could take years, but it doesn't necessarily concern me because usually if the market were to pick up, people usually care about the narrative, the story, kind of the ambitions of a project more so than the current adoption. Inherently, what that means is that if for whatever reason the narrative when it comes to ICP were to take off, it doesn't even really need good adoption to begin with, as long as it's like, for whatever reason, narrative, it just kind of goes along with the ride. But this is just personally the way I take a look at this. Now, granted, this is kind of also a major concern, in which case where people say, wow, ICP has been stuck for under $5 for so long. And I agree with that. It kind of feels like that. Because ever since the start of 2026, we've never ever seen ICP go above $5, which some people like to say, wow, that's very embarrassing. But we have to also consider, back in November of last year, ICP is over 3 times higher than where it is as of right now. It was around $9 back in November. Case in point, Bitcoin is not 3 times lower than where it was back in November. Now, I know, kind of being happy that a project is low may sound so counterintuitive, but some people out there are entering, some people out there are exiting. Some people out there are selling their car for a loss, some other people out there are acquiring that vehicle. Some people out there are selling their real estate at a loss, some people out there are acquiring. So one person's exit may be another person's entrance, I suppose. So this is why, when it comes to low prices, they don't necessarily concern me, because try asking Warren Buffett if he likes low prices or not. Especially when it comes to Apple stocks, because I've seen historically Berkshire Hathaway acquire Apple stocks when they're pretty low. They don't do it when it's like sky high, typically, from what I can see generally speaking when it comes to stocks in regard to Berkshire Hathaway. Is Warren Buffett 100% correct all the time though? Absolutely not, in my opinion. The reason why is because, remember not too long ago when a lot of people were like saying how they're done with newspapers, some people were saying it's cooked and all this. Did you know what Warren Buffett did? He basically like believed in newspapers when people were exiting. He kind of like, I guess in a sense, some people would hypothetically say, doubling down on newspapers. Was that a good idea in hindsight? Absolutely not. It's a bad idea, actually, in my opinion. At least that's the way I view it. So he's not going to be always correct all the time. But evidently, if we see Berkshire Hathaway acquiring like Apple stocks, for instance, that historically has been a pretty fantastic move on their part from what we can see. Because Apple is now just worth a lot more than before. But I'm saying, I have to take a look at it generally speaking. It's like an exam, right? Let's say a test or whatever. It's not about 1 or 2 mistakes. It's about, hey, you know what? Is it still like an A or a B? You know what I mean? Sometimes not even getting 100% correct, still, it's a pretty good score. Still A minus. Good enough. So when it comes to, let's say in this space, I kind of view it no different. I like dollar cost averaging, preferably when things are pretty low. Do I know how low things could go? No. Do I know when things could recover? Absolutely not. I don't know any of this type of stuff. But I don't need to know it either, though, in my opinion, because trying to kind of know what happens in the short term, it's very difficult. Even take a look at CZ, right? The founder of Binance, even he himself says it's very difficult. He says he thinks more so about the long term. And I do think about it that way as well. Like, it's very difficult to know what happens tomorrow or in 2 days and 3 days. It's just very difficult to predict that type of stuff. So instead, I don't take a look at that frame of mind. I don't take a look at that mindset, and I start thinking about, okay, maybe years if I have to wait. The reason why I don't mind waiting for years is because if, let's say, it does take quite a while, I'm not angry because I know that, okay, you know what? I expected to wait for quite a while anyways. But if it happens a little bit earlier, then I'm even happier because I didn't expect it to happen that fast. This is, I think, a better mindset for me, as opposed to I want it fast, but then it happens slow. Then I'm disappointed. But if I'm expecting it to be slow and it happens fast, then I'm happier. So personally, I just don't view waiting as a bad thing. Like, personally, I am still waiting. I don't know how long I'm going to have to wait, but I'll wait. For as long as I have to, I'll clearly wait. It's purely voluntary, though. I mean, I don't have to do this, but I just feel like waiting, so I'm going to wait. But again, seeing that statistic right there, when it comes to ICP processing allegedly more transactions than Visa, at least in terms of the transactions per second on average as of May 2024. Again, I don't know why they reposted this, like, basically very recently, kind of bizarre, but you know what? It is what it is, so I felt like talking about it. I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day. It's been Lee the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.